Welcome to another in our series of questions asked in the Old Testament. Our question today comes from Isaiah chapter 6. Isaiah chapter 6 and verse 8, the question is asked, "Whom shall I send and who will go for us?" So that we may get the context of this question that is asked, we'll be reading Isaiah chapter 6 verses 1 through 13. Beginning in verse 1, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the foundations of the thresholds shook at the voice of him who called. And the house was filled with smoke. And I said, Woe is me, for I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken with tongs from the altar. And he touched my mouth and said, Behold, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, Here I am, send me. And he said, Go, and say to this people, Keep on hearing, but do not understand. Keep on seeing, but do not perceive. Make the heart of this people dull, and their ears heavy, and blind their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and turn, and be healed. Then I said, How long, O Lord? And he said, Until cities lie waste without inhabitant, and houses without people, and the land is a desolate waste. And the Lord removes people far away, and the forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. And though 1/10 remain in it, it will be burned again like a terebinth or an oak, whose stump remains when it is felled. The holy seed is its stump." I've heard from reliable sources that one thing you never do in the military is volunteer. One soldier found this out the hard way. When the sergeant asked if any of the soldiers had artistic abilities, that soldier raised his hand. The sergeant announced that everyone would get a 3-day pass, except him. He had to stay behind and neatly print the names of all the soldiers on their Army-issued underwear. Such is the life of the volunteer in the military. I typed in essays on volunteerism on the internet and found a site where writers charge $11 per page to write an essay on volunteering. I thought that was rather ironic. Don't you think so? However, in the real world, volunteerism is lauded and applauded. In fact, it is one of the things that organizations, higher education, potential job employers, and others look for in prospects. Do they have the capacity to give themselves unselfishly to help without compensation or monetarily in recognition? When President John F. Kennedy spoke those historic words in his inaugural address in 1961, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country," he inspired an untold number of people to reach within themselves to help their country and the world. That volunteer army has made an incalculable impact on the world. Such is the life of a Peace Corps volunteer. In our passage today, Isaiah is shown a vision of heaven and the Lord sitting on his throne. It was such an awesome sight and sound that Isaiah feels his life shall be lost at having experienced such an event. But through the agency of an angel, Isaiah is comforted and assuaged. Then a call for a volunteer goes forth. Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? In verse 8. In a stunning turn of events, God actually gets a volunteer. Unlike Moses, who concocts excuse after excuse of why the Lord should get someone instead of him in Exodus chapter 3, Isaiah blurts out, Here I am, send me. The task of the prophet in the Old Testament and the New Testament is a difficult one. It was filled with danger. As God describes what Isaiah is in for, I wonder if he might have thought he spoke a bit too soon. Perhaps he should have heard the job description first, when he's told in verses 9 and 10, Go and say to this people, Keep on hearing, but do not understand. Keep on seeing, but do not perceive. Make the hearts of this people dull and their ears heavy, and blind their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed. Yet, Isaiah again doesn't flinch when he replies, "How long, O Lord?" There's just got to be something wrong with him to want to put up with this, knowing the outcome. But that's the difference between the volunteer who has given his or her heart completely to God and the one who perhaps goes in with half a heart or ulterior motives. My uncle told me when I was a young boy that I could move the world if I had a lever long enough. Later, I would learn that this was the thoughts of Archimedes and was based on the law of physics. Jesus sent his volunteers out to move the world. And within a generation, those volunteers and many more like them turned the world upside down, as we read in Acts chapter 17 and verse 6. That call goes out yet today to take the word to the world. And I wonder how many of us will answer the call. And Lord willing, let's meet here again tomorrow and look at another word from the Old Testament.